pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's challenging. Throw us off a little bit. Thanks, pledge. All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. I think our agenda is all set. We don't have any presentations tonight, right, John?
Correct.
Approval of minutes. Be resolved that the minutes of the March 16th regular meeting be approved. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Visitors' requests?
Nope.
We're all set there. On to approvals of the warrants. Be resolved that after an audit of the bills, payment of the warrants, internal claims, auditors' reports be approved. These are 310, 318, and 326. Can we get a motion?
Motion.
A second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be resolved that the treasurer's report for February 2021 be approved. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. On to reports. Christine.
Well, we're here tonight. For me, one of the biggest pieces of my job is presenting a budget to you guys. So I'm going to take this opportunity to present the budget that we've put together for next year, where it's at now, give you an update from last month. A lot of you have seen this before. We talked about our enrollment, how if you look over the last 14 years, it's gone down slightly. But if you look at the last 5 years, a little closer look at it, you'll see that in the year, this fiscal year, we've had an increase to 141 students, and we are attributing that really to all the good things that are going on here in the district, and the fact that we're been here 5 days a week in person this entire year, when other schools, have not been able to do that. So we're very fortunate there, and I think our community recognizes that. Our budget was built on instructional priorities. It supports our literacy initiative with expansion of evidence-based instructional resources and expansion of online intervention programs. It's providing students with a multi-tier systems of support with academic, behavioral, and social, emotional learning. And it expands our teacher-led math and lit teams into the middle school. And it supports partnering with Genesee County Mental Health, Rachel's Challenge, JACASA, and again, supporting our social emotional learning for students and their well-being. Obviously, we have fiscal priorities as well. This budget maintains current level of staffing with the exception of the addition back of a half-time music teacher. Maintains current levels of educational programming and extracurricular activities, maintains our transportational vehicle replacement plan, ensures fiscal stability for our that supports our short and long-term initiatives, supports a long-range planning, and has minimal impact on our taxpayers. We do have on our ballot this year to establish a new capital project reserve, as we use that this year to fund the existing project that's going on right now. And we're also going to continue with our annual $100,000 capital outlay projects, which are aided back to the districts at 92.7%. So it's a good deal if we can get little projects like that done every year, minimal impact. And it supports student and staff technology needs. Our total proposed budget for next year, again, these numbers haven't changed from prior presentations. We're still presenting a budget of $21,356,442. That represents a $232,600 $696 increase at 1.1% over the prior year. Again, on the left is the expenditures. Those have not changed from prior presentations. What has changed is on the right with our revenue. Our state aid has gone up slightly with the state budget passing in early April. That has allowed us, in the bottom two lines on the right, there are appropriated fund balance and our use of reserves. It's allowed us to rely less on those to balance the budget for next year. Expenditure assumptions, where things will be back to normal. That's what we're hoping for. Full extracurricular activities will come with that. Salaries, in here the assumptions are as per the employment contracts, 3% anticipated increase for managerial confidential staff, and again, I mentioned this before, 0.5 music teacher at the elementary school. Benefits, health insurance went up 7%, and our TRS and ERS, which is our retirement systems for our employees and teachers, that went up slightly as well from the prior year. We're planning to replace 2 sedans versus full-size buses this year. We do feel that we'll get probably $16,000 back on auction for the other 2 buses, or the 2 vehicles as we put that out to auction. And it also includes replacing the plow truck. Similarly, we have $45,000 in that, but we anticipate getting $20,000 back. Again, we talked about this. We'll continue with $100,000 capital outlay projects that we get aid on. In 1920, we purchased the PA system at the high school. 2021, we purchased the elementary school one. They're in the process of being installed and activated. In 21-22, our plan is to work on some of the entryways at the back of the building and flooring in one of the areas at the high school. Just going to touch on some key significant portions of our budget. Our expenditures for salaries is about 43.16% of our budget. They're going up about 3.48% overall. And benefits are the second largest piece of our budget. We talked about health insurance and our retirement contributions going up, but overall, our benefits are only going up 4.1% over prior. Debt service is another larger portion of our budget. This is for the bonds and the band payments for our capital expenditures over the years. This is largely covered in state aid for building aid and transportation aid, but that went down slightly just as we reduce interest on debt. And our BOCES expenditures went down slightly. We have some less outside placements and some services that we weren't really utilizing, so that's about 10% of our budget. This is just another look at a different way, and you'll see this in your when you're looking at the budget notice that will go out. This is the 3 components of our budget: the administrative, program, and capital. The largest portion of this is the program portion. As you'll see in the largest piece, that's 69% of our budget. That includes instruction and transportation of our students, so that's the biggest piece of that. Revenue compared to prior years, if you compare to your presentations that I've done prior month, you'll see that our state aid number has changed. It went up about 200 some odd thousand, although from what I had presented last month, and I'll dive into that a little bit more about what that breakout is. But property tax, this reflects a $103,000 increase to the tax levy, which is a 1.95% increase, which is right at the tax levy limit that we've calculated. And it also shows not using any more appropriated fund balance, but 36,000 more in use of reserves from prior year. But as you noticed, remember from last month, we had 500,000 in that use of reserves. So we were able to lower that based on what we were getting in state aid.
On your property tax one, how do we, I'm sure it doesn't end up being much, but like property values in Oakfield have gone up a lot in the last couple of years. So I mean, what does that kind of equate to us from year over year?
I actually have a good description coming up, and I'll talk a little bit about that.
Could I ask you one question? What's unclassified revenue?
It would be things like use of facilities, refunds of prior year expenses from BOCES.
Is pilot in there, or is that?
Pilot, let me take a look back. Yes, our pilot is in that, and that's a significant portion of that too. 500 and some odd thousand of that is pilot.
That'll be up there on a couple slides from now.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay. So our proposed revenue budget, obviously, you know, this shows an indication of how we rely on state aid and property taxes. It supports the bulk of our budget. Our state aid is 67% and property taxes is 25%. Here's a little breakout of state aid. Last year, the governor had kept foundation aid flat, and he was proposing to do that as well. Foundation aid, that first line there is $9,345,129. That is an increase from last month. He did open that up, and his goal is to be fully funding foundation aid over the next 3 years. But I'll give you a little breakout of that on the next slide. But otherwise, the other items on state aid really didn't change very much from the last presentation. Key points in state aid, it represents 66% of our foundation aid, excuse me, that $9 million represents 66% of our total state aid. So when you hear people talk about foundation aid, this is why. It's one of the biggest portions of district's aid. Our district is fortunate. We are, our foundation aid is funded fully, like 98% of the original foundation aid formula. So last year we were at $9,072,000. We went up by 200 and some odd thousand to the 93.45. Our fully funded foundation aid amount would be $9,500,000. So right now the districts only owed foundation aid if they were to fully fund it $188,649, and that's planned to be. The districts are supposed to get that over the next 3 years, based on the language in the budget that was just passed. I know there's also a lot of talk about this federal money that's out there, and I wanted to touch briefly on what it is and what it is not. Based on what we know right now, we're waiting on further guidance. What we do know is that it is not considered general fund revenue. It is also not recurring revenue, so there will be at some point in time this will go away. We have 3 years to 4 years to spend it. What it is, it's federal grant money accounted for in the special aid fund. So think like we do our title grant money, that's accounted for in a separate fund. What we're hearing that the uses are for it is primarily to address learning loss. We must post a plan to our by July 1st for how we plan to utilize those funds, but we have not gotten clarity on the guidance on how to develop the plan. We have some ideas. We're already talking about it amongst the admin team, trying to get some ideas together. So hopefully when we get guidance, we'll be able to put together a plan fairly in short order.
There's a dollar figure on that, or?
Yes, right. Oops, sorry. I'm getting finger happy here.
Little over 3 million.
3.3 million over the course of, well, 3 years. So our CARES Act money, which was the money that, stimulus from last year, that was $117,000. That was recorded in the general fund, and we did actually just last week receive approval for that. Again, we had to apply for it the same way as we will these others, but we did get that approval, and we are getting reimbursed for that. So I'm excited. That was good news. But we have used that.
You know when you're receiving that money?
I don't know for sure, but we did get our approval.
Yeah.
And I've already submitted the final expenditure report. I do know that there are other districts who've received it, so I'm hopeful.
So to kind of put it honestly with you, this money has lots of strings attached to it, lots of jumps, lots of hoops to jump through, a lot of applications that need to be filled out, and we kind of all joke that until, you know, the Brinks truck backs up here and dumps the money off in district office, it's not ours yet. So again, we're waiting for the guidance. We will certainly, obviously, do what we need to make sure that we get those monies. But again, there's lots of restrictions on how to use that money, and I want to make it clear that it's just not, oh, Oakfield received $3.3 million, plunk it here. The way we get those monies is by you know, incorporating those monies into, you know, programs that will eventually be approved by state ed. There's pockets of when and where this money can be spent. So when we talk about it not being general fund money, we just can't take this $3 million and plunk it into a reserve. It's not free money. 20% of it is supposed to be used for learning loss, and what that looks like would be, you know, we could supplement a summer school, we can have enrichment programs, we can do extended school year programs with students, and so this money is earmarked for districts, but how we spend it is really at the control of the state. So we are not using it, and you can't use it in general fund to, you know, supplement. Like, it's very restrictive on how to use that money. And again, like Christine said, we're waiting for the guidance. We'll certainly fill out the applications, but it is not free money, so to say.
I had a question that brings me back to the page 20 where it says must post a plan for use by July 1st, 2021. And that seems like a short amount of time if the guidance hasn't come out yet. So what if they don't like our plan? Does that mean we don't get the money? Is it that kind of restriction?
Kind of like the CARES Act money. I think we filled out that application 3 or 4 times. They'll kick it back. It's not like they'll say, we don't like your plan, so the money's gone.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, we'll have to reinvent and recreate and make sure they like what we're spending it on and using it for. So,
did I understand that you just said 20% is supposed to be used for learning loss?
Correct.
So in 20 it says primarily to address that. So what's the other 80% for? Or is that still
it could be used for technology. It could be used for, again, transportation. I mean, we don't know yet if it could be used for salaries if we have our own summer school, or we run enrichment programs, or, you know, we have extended school year activities for students, you know, the boot camp down at the elementary. You know, we don't have that guidance, but that's what we're thinking that it's going to be all encompassing of. One of the things that we are making sure that we don't do is have reoccurring costs, because as Christine said, after 3 years this money's gone, and we don't want to create and establish programs here where they're, you know, after 3 years when the money's gone, we're sitting here going, oh boy, you know, it's a whole nother huge expense for the district to continue with these programs. So it's going to be, it's all new. So, you know, we're getting advisement, and we'll just continue on, and we'll see when the guidance comes out, you know, how we can proceed to get our hands on those monies.
Moving on to the tax levy cap, I know I've shown this in previous slides as well. It's a complicated formula. It starts out with a prior year tax base, tax levy, has some growth factors and increases and decreases in pilot, capital levies, exclusions, that comes to what our maximum allowable levy is. And that is 1.95% increase over the prior year, which is 103,705. Give you a little bit of history of the tax cap, our tax levy cap for our district. As you can see, the yellow line is what the maximum allowable levy was those years. The blue line is what our district has historically gone out at for our tax levy increases on those years. We've stayed below the levy every year. Last year we did 0%, and this year to be able to balance the budget this year, not use more of our reserves than we need to. We're going to go out to the 1.95%, or at least that's what we're proposing. The projected tax rates based on current, I'm looking at you, Pete, on this so you know. So it's based on the current assessments that we have, that information we have at this point in time. One of the things, and I'm going to jump ahead quick to the next slide. Obviously, we know there's 3 elements to our tax levy. There's the tax levy to the school, 3 elements to the tax rate. The tax levy that we have is just one piece of those three elements. And one of them is obviously the assessed value of the property by the town assessors, which we won't have that until a later date. Unfortunately, I don't have that now, so I'm going off of the existing ones that we have, and the equalization rate from the state. Those 2 elements we aren't in control of. I do have links up on the presentation if anybody wants to go out and kind of take a look at that, and when those will be adjusted. But the equalization rates, or the assessed values, the tentative roll date is May 1st, and then the final roll date is July 1st. I did find that on Genesee County's site. I'm not exactly sure when the equalization rates are. I think that's May or July. I looked at prior years' reports to see, and that seems to be the date that they established that. So it's too early to tell at this point in time if the equalization rates will change or the assessed values will change. So
basically, if anything comes through, it's just kind of like a little bit of a bonus.
It'll be a little bit of a bump, a little glitch in these numbers, and it could go in favorable direction. So right now, the projected tax rates would be, let's pick Oakfield, is 20.86 versus last year was 20.46, which is a 40-cent increase. So on a $100,000 house, it would be, and I apologize on that, it should be 2068 with a $39.94 increase. Just a little quick look at our reserves. I wanted to point out, our balance at the beginning of this last fiscal year was $5.8 million. We used 1.6 in our capital reserve to fund the district portion of that and get that up and running. And you had in the budget last year to use a little bit of the retirement contribution reserve and the debt service reserve to balance the budget. So right now, we're projecting that at the end of this fiscal year, we'll have $3.9 million left in reserves. So for next year, then, the one element where I plan to the reserve I plan to pull money from to balance the budget was $226,000 from the retirement contribution reserve to pay the retirement bills in the fiscal year 21-22. Just an overview on the STAR program that goes along with our taxes, but the STAR program provides homeowners with a partial exemption from their school property tax. With the STAR program, for those who make more than $250,000, there was a switch to receiving it as a credit on their taxes to a check from receiving a credit on the taxes to receiving a check from the state. Those taxpayers making less than $250,000, you do have the option to make that switch, but the value of the STAR credit doesn't will grow if you do that switch to receiving a check. But if you do it as the exemption, which is the credit on your bill, it won't increase.
Could you explain that a little more, please? It's about because you're faded off. So how does that work about the switch and the non-switch?
Not my area of expertise. However, I will try my best. So as a homeowner, if you're an existing homeowner, right now, you are receiving STAR as a credit on your bill. If you make less than $250,000, you can stay with getting the credit on your tax bill. You won't see an increase in the STAR, the amount of the credit. The credit will stay flat. If you opt to go with getting the check back, that check will increase 1% or 2%. I'm not 100% sure what that will be. It might be a fluctuating number. I'm still on the credit, so I apologize. I don't know exactly how the other piece works. If you buy a home, you're automatically enrolled into getting it as a check.
So instead of getting, so it basically means you have to pay the money first and then wait for the state to refund it?
Yes, and I don't, I can't speak from experience. I don't know, if that comes on time. If it comes right up to the last minute, because I get my bill, I pay it. Do you have it at the beginning of September? Do you get it at the end of September? I don't know. But there's a lot of great information on the New York State Property Tax website that can really explain it in detail.
So is this a new feature, this ability to switch back?
They
and forth?
implemented it last year.
Okay, so a lot of people
It's fairly new, and not a lot of people do
haven't
know.
experienced it yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. So, but there is really great information on the New York State Property Tax website on it. So, the remaining budget timeline tonight is at the Board of Ed meeting. We're hoping to approve the 21-22 budget, and tomorrow I'll be submitting the property tax report card. You have that property tax report card in the agenda to be approved. And just a little overview, the proposition, obviously, Proposition 1 is approving the budget. Proposition 2 is the establishment of a new capital reserve. It's not funding it, but it's the previous reserve was used towards a current capital project, and we want to have a new one established so that in the future we can start funding that. We have 2 open positions on the board. Candidates are Tim Edgerton, Jeff Hyde, Lorna Klotzbach, and Maria Thompson. The budget vote's Tuesday, May 18th from 11 to 8 in person. You'd enter through the middle high school door by the library, the public entrance there. And we're going to have the voting right out there in the hallway, right outside the library doors. Voter qualifications, basic information, citizen of the United States, 18 years of older, and a resident of Oakfield-Alabama School District for 30 days. Does anybody have any questions that I haven't been able to answer? And I'd be glad to get back to you on more information on that if you want, Lorna.
So we have essentially not had to make any serious cuts in program staffing, or we have made cuts in other expenditures, correct?
We sat down as an administrative team. I have to give, just great kudos to Christine, not only being new here, but being thrust right into not only a capital project, but, this time of the year with budget. And she has sat down with every department, every administrator, and really just cleaned up a lot. And I could say that I feel, sitting down with her and again crunching numbers, this is a very, very responsible budget. It does not have any cuts to it. Like you said, we added an additional half-time music teacher, which if things work out, we'd like to see it become full-time. Obviously there are no teacher retirements. We do have, a handful of bus drivers and other support staff, but we're right on target. We are very pleased with, you know, the state aid runs that did come in, because obviously we were thinking the worst, and it wasn't the worst. So we feel that this is a very logical, sensible, and fiscally responsible budget. So you're correct, there are no cuts to programs, activities, staff at this point.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you to the admin team for all your support and helping me scrub some of the numbers. It really helped me understand how things were done here at OA and what some of the numbers meant for you guys might mean something different in my prior district. So it was very, very much a team effort.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Yeah, sure. Just take this off. So I do have just a handful of announcements. This Thursday at 6 o'clock, you might have received the Parent Square message. Myself, along with Lynn and Matt, and with Rob's assistance, thank you, we are going to live stream a forum just on the new guidance that came out April 9th, just for a little bit of clarity. I did send a letter home last week trying to, I don't want to say downplay, but just, you know, what effect does this new guidance have on us as a district? I know that there's lots of other school districts that are dealing with things that we don't have to, and there's a lot in the news, and it's all over social media. So I just wanted to be able to provide a little bit of detail, have the opportunity for parents, teachers, we send it out to students to watch it. They can type in questions just to clarify what this means for us moving forward. So we'll live stream that on Thursday at 6 p.m. I believe Rob has already sent out a link, so we'll get that up and going, and it just, you know, hopefully it maybe will calm some fears or answer some questions that people have on what that means. Overall, I will tell the board that not much is changing here. We have been open full-time, 5 days a week since September. The premise of this new guidance was pressure from, obviously, school districts and student advocates to get kids back into school. And a lot of districts are hybrid. And so the main premise of this guidance was that the New York State Department of Health was going along with the CDC guidance, saying that 3 feet of separation is now appropriate, and that the social distancing could be 3 feet as long as students wore masks, because they were less than 6 feet apart. So obviously that would allow more students into classrooms. That really doesn't affect us. We can remain, you know, 6 feet apart in 99% of the cases. The issue comes in as you dig a little deeper into the guidance that all of Western New York, including Erie and Niagara and Orleans and Genesee County, we are in a high transmission risk area for COVID. So if you dig deeper, you'll realize that while the elementary schools can still have kids at 3 feet, the middle high school now, if you are going down to 3 feet, have to cohort. Well, for those of you that don't know what cohorting means, that means that the kids are the same kids, or with the same kids each and every day, all day long. I will tell you, at the high school, that's virtually impossible. You can't have all of the freshmen stay with the freshmen. You can't. Cohorting at the high school is impossible. It's a scheduling nightmare. So if you can't cohort at the middle and high school, then you must go back and maintain 6 feet of distancing, which is right back to the original problem that most districts have. So when you hear that middle school and high schools were coming back and now they're delaying, it's because of that guidance. That doesn't really affect us. We're going to keep doing what we're doing since September. Here's the kicker, and I will tell you that I'm just baffled at this, is that now masks are mandatory. So while we had said in our original reopening plans, kids could be 6 feet apart, sitting at their desks, they could take their masks off, now they can't. So I want to make the community aware that come next Monday, that to abide by this new guidance, masks will be mandatory for everybody in school on campus. We will certainly give mask breaks. Kids are resilient. I'd say, 90% of them are wearing masks all the time anyway, just because of the new quarantining guidelines, which I'll go over again on the Thursday live stream. But come next Monday, when kids are sitting at their desks in class and they're 6 feet apart, 8 feet apart, 10 feet apart, they'll be having their masks on. So that's really the only change for us. There's 2 months of school left. The kids have been great, and I'm hopeful that, this is the end of it, and come next fall, we don't have to deal with any of this stuff. But I just need to get that out there. I have to sign my name. I have to attest to this, that we're open 5 days a week and abiding by the guidance. So really the only change for us is masks are now mandatory.
How will you give mask breaks?
That's something that Lynn and Matt are working on. Mask breaks will be when kids can go outside. We'll, more so down at the elementary, that's kind of who I'm concerned with. There just may be a rotation where, if kids are in a class for an hour and they're working on stuff, maybe 2 to 3 at a time, just, with an aide, leave the room, go outside. I mean, we're gonna have to figure that out.
Is the mask being mandatory all the time across the board for the whole state, or only because we're in this high transmission district?
No, the guidance says absolutely nothing about the transmission areas. It says right in there on page 9, masks are mandatory unless eating a meal. And that's for every school district in the state. And it has nothing to do with us being in a high or low transmission.
Some school districts have been mandatory since September, October, and Kendall's been since October, and I don't see any issue with it at all. And from the pre-K level all the way up, I don't see any kids complaining. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have their breaks, and
Right.
It's just part of the day. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but I don't know. I don't see a big issue.
And I want the community to understand that our reopening plans back in August and September, that was one of the things on the survey, is people were fine with wearing the mask, but I know that there was a concern of wearing masks all day long for 7.5 hours. So I want the community to understand that, we took that into account, and what we've been doing from September to now, has been working. It's okay. This is not my decision. This isn't the district's decision. This just came down from the state on April 9th. And we are questioning of, if you want to bring all of these kids back into school, and certainly 3 feet of distance, yeah, you should have a mask on. But why all of a sudden does now 6 feet not work? And that's just kind of when you scratch your head and you say, I'm right there with you. Some of it doesn't make sense.
It's probably an effort to reduce, whatever they believe their transmission rate is without the mask, and then to reduce contact tracing, I would imagine, to try to eliminate that. They figure if it's all masked, then...
Right. So, we're just following the guidelines, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what needs to happen. But the rest of what we're doing here, common sense will prevail. We'll continue on with 5 days. You do have a board resolution in front of you tonight, because what districts needed to do was to resubmit their reopening plans if they were making any changes. And that is more so for the districts who were hybrid, who are now going back to in-person 5 days a week. We're already there. So the board resolution is we're going to continue on with our plan. We don't really need to change anything, and hopefully we'll end the year on a high note. And then, again, if guidance changes over the summer and we need to revamp what we do in the fall, we certainly will. But This new guidance, like I said, except for the mandatory mask, doesn't really pertain to us. You know, and I don't know if we're going to see a spike in families saying, well, I'm going to have my kid go remote. I hope that's not the case. Like you had said, Justin, you know, the kids are resilient, and I think Lynn probably can justify that the kids down at the elementary, you know, are near each other. So for the most part, they are wearing their masks the majority of the day.
Yep.
So, you know, as maybe, you know, parents or guardians don't want to hear their kid wearing masks all day, you know, it's, again, we'll provide mask breaks, but like you had said, it's, you know, they're used to it.
Our masks have not prohibited us from doing any of our fun activities, any of our elementary themed ideas. You know, they're still doing their theme days, they're still having a lot of fun, they're still being kids, they're still playing and interacting. You know, they wash their hands more and they wear a mask. But other than that, everything has been pretty status quo in my building, which I've been very thankful for, and I know my teachers have also done too.
I think the younger kids have actually adapted to it better. I just know with my two kids, like,
Yeah.
my son will be going down the road and I'll turn around, he's got his mask on. I'll be like, take your mask off. He's like, oh, well, and he'll just leave it on. But I think it's probably the middle high school and the high schoolers that just do it to be rebellious. They're like, oh, I don't want to wear this mask. You know, that's my older son. And with the little guys, they're just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. And honestly, like UPK and kindergarten, some of these kids have never been to school before. This is all they
don't
know
know.
right now. So they don't know any different. They don't know what to expect. And then, like I said, first through fifth, they've been fantastic. We haven't had to change our spacing much. In the gym, we still can keep the 12-foot distance, which I know Andrea and Corey are going to opt to do. They still play some interactive games and stuff, but it really hasn't changed the function of our building at all.
Do they change athletic guidance at all?
No.
What's baseball, softball? Are they, even though they're outdoors, are they wearing masks when they're standing next to a player? Yes.
I would also like to honor and congratulate Carly Smith, this year's valedictorian, and Zach Hall, our salutatorian. Awesome students and young adults, and so Carly and Zach finished number 1 and number 2. So congratulations to them. I'd also like to congratulate our 08 year cheerleading squad. If you aren't aware, last weekend they placed first at the Genesee Region Cheer Competition. So awesome kudos to them. Great job. I want to congratulate Danica Porter, who signed with NCCC to play basketball. So we had a signing for her last week, so congratulations to Danica. To the board, we did go out to bid for our capital project. You do have a copy of what's on our website and what was advertised for your enjoyment. Next Tuesday, a week from today, we will have a pre-bid walkthrough with potential contractors coming here on campus at about 2:30. SEI and DGA will be here. An agenda has been set, so we will go over the project, the scope and the work that's involved, and then that gives the contractors and the bidders a chance to actually see the campus, see the work involved, and get a feel more so virtually of what we're trying to do here. Then bids will be due May 11th until 1 p.m. And then soon after that, on that May 11th, we will open and read aloud the bids. So certainly the board does not need to be here for that, but if all of a sudden on May 11th you see a whole bunch of people here on campus hooting and hollering and all that stuff, that's usually a fun day to open up the bids and see where we're at. I did ask the board for a special board meeting a week later at 6 p.m., which is actually the budget vote day, to approve and award the bid. So I would need four board members here on 6 p.m. on May 18th, just for a quorum so we can approve. I'm expecting that board meeting takes about 3 minutes.
Is there anything about that date, the Tuesday, the 18th, is that a firm date or can we be?
That's the date that they would like, just based on our timeline. It doesn't need to be, but I also thought that it was the budget vote, and it's a Tuesday, and our board meetings are on Tuesday at 6 p.m., so I just figured that would be, a week after. Gives them a chance to look at the bids and decide, who we want to go with, so usually it's a week later. That's not set in stone, but if we can get 4 people here, we wouldn't want it any later.
Is this something that you will have a recommendation to the board, or is the board
Correct.
supposed to consider?
SEI and DGA will make the recommendation of who the bidder is. Obviously, the question is, you want the lowest bidder, but you want the lowest bidder that can guarantee and promise the work being done. So they're very well versed in all of that, so they will make really the recommendations to myself and Christine, and then we'll make it to the Board of Education. And understand that really there's 5 different contracts. You have your mechanical, you have your electrical, you have your plumbing, so there'll be multiple contractors that will be awarding bids to. Varsity football is at Avon tonight. If we win, we will be the #1 seed heading into the playoffs, and if we lose, I think we're out. So I hope they do well.
Yeah.
They've had a great season. Spring sports practices began today, or actually began yesterday. So I'm just wondering how they're going to practice tomorrow with the weather. So you know me, I got an itchy trigger finger. So, but I'll keep the board up to date on that. And I think that's it. Anyone else have anything else to share?
I can go. Run Club is back up and going. We meet on Thursdays after school. We've worked with 5th grade students. You can see some decline in some physical activity over the COVID, so we've been creative with how to keep kids motivated to keep moving through that hour. And we are promoting our color run on June 4th. We're going to have a color run. We're going to have food trucks, so if you're not interested in running, but you want to come up and get some food, come and join. Lots of fun. And music, our .5 position, her name is Leah Rowland. She is here. She came overseas. She had some quarantine to do, but she's here. She was doing lessons this afternoon. She's slowly taking over all of the 5th grade lessons. She's working with Kristen Fluette and going into 4th grade classes and 3rd grade classes to generate some information and get some excitement going. And 4th grade students are going to be picking some instruments that they're, the 3 top instruments that they are interested in. And then through the process with Leah, they will go and pick the best one to meet your child's needs. So it's not just I want to be the flute because my sister played the flute. We have to find a balance for the band, but we also have to make sure that the child can work the mouthpiece. That's a really important part of all the instruments. So we're back to running full speed ahead. Good stuff happening.
Today, if you get to 3rd grade, you probably know, was our first New York State testing, was ELA. The district opted to do 1 day of testing without a hitch. And literally, I spent the morning in Lynn's building just to be a second administrator because sometimes things happen, but it was very smooth. And I heard from both kids and teachers today, like, wow, we're done? That was all we had to do today? It was kind of eerie. And JC kind of shared the same vibe in this building. Just went off without a hitch. So May 4th will be math testing. We'll do the same thing. 1 day. Hopefully it will go just as smoothly. And then we do still have in June the 4th grade and 8th grade science. And what they've done there is they'll just do the written portion. The state has taken away the hands-on portion. So that will also just be a one and done type test.
And I also have to celebrate, in the years that I've been an administrator, we've always had a fairly high refusal rate in elementary school. Today, not a single soul refused to take the test. So that's a huge celebration for me.
When will we have the results back from those tests, or like how long?
sure how they are going to weigh it or score it because we aren't doing the second part.
So will there be any data that out of those tests where we can kind of see where we were pre-COVID versus post-COVID or current COVID, or however you want to say that?
I'd say you don't want to compare those two. This was a one-day test.
You'll still have data. You will still have data, but it might not be that relevant.
It's not comparing apples to apples.
Right,
And
exactly,
Also,
exactly.
typically easier of the days because there's no written responses. It was all multiple choice.
And there was less questions too today, so like you normally, you see a lot more than 18 questions typically, and that's what it was today. And there were some other things that were interesting about today, or eye-opening perhaps, that really won't make necessarily, it won't be good to, a lot of times you can sit back and say, well, how did Oakfield do versus Pembroke, or how did Oakfield do versus Alva? And this year it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to make that comparison. Any other year, yeah, but this year, it's not going to be relevant. Just based on, our own plan here. There's not a lot of districts are in full time. I mean, like, hopefully we would do really well, but then again, you just don't know. So it's a hard comparison.
Well, but
this year.
even that though, I mean, they're both being graded the same, right?
Well, it's Scantron. You just feed it through this machine, and then it's going to go ding, 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 and come out the other side as long as they bubble correctly. And then, yeah, they should be.
But I would like to see, like, how do Oakfield kids stand up against other districts that weren't fully back in school or were more remote, or
And that data should be available.
That might be more
And
relevant
through BOCES
right
will
now.
definitely be made available.
Yeah,
more relevant
BOCES does a
comparison.
fantastic job of vetting data for us and comparing regions when they can do comparisons. Then we will also look at the data in our own light. There are some schools that were full-time that we can look at to see, I can call those principals to say, did you opt to do day 1 and 2, just day 1? So we can make sure that we're vetting some of that data that we are trying to do some comparisons for. But there'll be some things that we internally can use to lean towards, our goals, for sure.
but a comparison of past years is probably not going to be a good comparison.
No, and not that we have a lot of remote learners at the elementary, but those kids didn't have to take it. Kids that were absent, usually there's makeups. We're not doing makeups. It was a kind of a one and done type of deal. So, normally it's more regimented, and it's, I think it's taken a little more seriously. And, this year, even the state came out and said, we're not going to hold any student accountable. This isn't really going to account for anything. It's not going to count towards your district as far as, levels of accountability and all of that. So, it is what it is. I think we're going to use a lot of it to, even kind of like the Regents exams. If a kid doesn't show up for a Regents exam, doesn't mean he gets a 0. And we want them to take it because we want some data, but you got to be careful on how you use it.
So, I think I missed it. We, as a district, got to choose how many days of testing we would do.
There's a state survey that came out that you were able to fill out. I think we filled it out 3 times. I think we all filled it out. That allowed us to pick if we were going to do day 1 and 2. And what that looked like.
So day 1 and 2 you did.
We just did day 1 for both ELA and then in math we was the same as day 1.
Day 2 doesn't count even if you did it. So even if a district opted to do day 2, I don't think that is even going anywhere. The district would grade their own. Day 1 is the day that they said, this is the day that you need to administer the test. This is the data that has to be submitted so we can score these. Day 2 was, well, if you want to do it, go for it. We'll give you the scoring discs. We'll send them to you and score it yourself.
You get to score it yourself.
If you want.
The discs are in my office. They're locked in my safe right now.
You don't even have to go to Dansville and do all that
Not this year,
complicated mixing and.
And we haven't done that in years either, that whole process. Yeah.
Good, one more good news things. Julia Garrick was a 2020 grad. When she was here, she was our District 9 state FFA president. She now is off doing great things at Cornell and is the FFA she was District 9 president last year. This year she's the state treasurer. So she's still involved in that state, going on, doing great things afterwards. And our final exam schedule is being finalized, and award assembly planning is in full effect for this program. So Lots of ads came in this morning.
In my department, we're about 3/4 of the way through our annual review season, and meetings are going really well. A lot of parent involvement. I think we actually have more. I think parents are actually liking the option to have the virtual meetings. It's nice they can maybe take a break at work instead of taking the whole day off. So that's been going really well, and we're actually seeing a lot of student growth, a lot of progress towards IEP goals, which is really great. You know, since we did miss quite a chunk of school last year, so I think for that.
Do we know, are we gonna have a chance to come in at some point to do in-person solos, or is that not gonna happen this year? or next year?
Probably not this year, but and we'll kind of have to look at it next year to see kind of where we're at. You know, I would like in the future to have the option for parents to kind of decide what they would prefer.
You talk about graduation plans. I've been asked that a couple times in your beginning stages. Maybe.
Yeah, so I've been talking with Matt. I know Matt's had conversations with the the senior officers and the class advisors. The big thing that we want to try to avoid is having to do rapid testing. Currently, right now, the guidance for outdoor events is if you have more than 200 people, then everybody that attends 72 hours has to receive a rapid test. That could be a nightmare. So what we're trying to do, and I've mentioned to Matt, who I know again is working with the advisors and the kids, we want to do what the kids want to do. It's their graduation. It's not my graduation. It's their graduation. And the idea is that they want to have it in the football stadium, which is very doable. The problem is that we're going to have to limit the number of people that can come. Now, I went to last week's football game, and looking at the track and the football field and the bleachers and just the area, man, we could have a lot of people out there. But we have to provide our graduation plans to our local Department of Health. They are now the overseers and the hammers on the school districts, which I know Paul doesn't really want any responsibility in that. But we have to provide these plans and attest that we're abiding by the guidance. So what I've kind of said is, well, that would be great. So if you take a graduate, 60-some kids graduating, 2 per kid to come, like an athletic event, and then everybody else there, you're at probably 200. And that could be great, and we could avoid the testing. If we have more than, 220, 230, we'd have to rapid test. And to tell people, you have to go and rapid test and whatever, all of a sudden I can see some asymptomatic seniors the night before going to get a rapid test, and all of a sudden they're positive. Or a family come in and say, I don't have proof, I didn't go. What are you going to do, kick them out? So we just want to avoid the testing altogether. So we talked about doing something similar like last year, where you could pack a car full of 4 or 5 people to come and watch. But I know the kids don't want to do that. I think they want it in the football stadium. So we're just gonna continue to see what we can muster up. But
What if you're vaccinated, John?
the problem is everybody's not. So if you're vaccinated, you don't have to get a rapid test.
Right.
So for example, I'm going to attend graduation, I don't need a rapid test because I can prove that I'm vaccinated. But not every kid is, not every family member is, and so it's a logistical nightmare. What do you do that morning? Do you have, Tim Westcott out there checking to make sure that you can prove you're vaccinated or prove that you have a rapid test? I just don't want to go down that road. For prom, kids are going to have to get a rapid test, or you don't go to prom. That's going to be their decision. But we want everybody here at graduation, so we're really trying to make it easy and simplistic that we don't have to deal with the testing regulations.
So is that going to be across the board, 200 is the limit, or so you talked to Paul and you said there's
It's
no
stated in the guidance.
There's no variance dependent upon this.
Stated in the guidance, yep.
So why would prom, you would have to, because you'd be under 200?
So since prom is off campus, we have to abide by
that?
It's over at Arrowhead, the Timber Lodge, so we have to abide by their regulations. So whatever they need for us to do to have it there. So, you know, one of the stipulations is you're at a table of 4, and that's your date, and those are your friends. And those are the only ones that you can dance with on the dance floor, too. So, and everybody's got to get a rapid test, and they have to serve the food a certain way, and, you know, so there is an outdoor aspect to it, you know, but we, again, have to abide by what, because they're the ones that are under the gun for having, you know, a congregation there, so.
It's an opportunity that didn't exist last year, so that's something that's, you know.
Right, but we absolutely are moving forward with prom and graduation, and somehow, somewhere, we'll make it happen.
Has there been any discussion about vaccinations in school next year?
Making them mandatory to return, no. Nope. In my mind, that would be, I think, another political nightmare that school districts would have to deal with. But
It's one of those nightmares I just hope I don't wake up to someday, because you know it's going to be but I mean, you already seen what they're trying to do with Bills games, so.
yeah,
it's like,
right.
you know.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Do you or anyone else foresee any of that guidance changing between now and June? Or can you just not tell?
How many times?
Yeah. By the time you have this forum on Thursday, it could change again. I think the guidance changes based upon the pressure, the political pressure that's out there to get kids back in school. And again, right, wrong, or different, everybody's got their perception. You know, I'm certainly questioning why all of a sudden 6 feet isn't good enough. You know, how far that's going to go, because we are all back in, you know, I know Matt Calderon over at Pembroke has the same idea as I do. Wait a second, why all of a sudden now you're bringing all these kids back and they're 3 feet and masking? We had kids 6 feet, we can maintain 6 feet, but now all of a sudden you make it harder on us? Now we have to wear masks? So
You don't think
I
that's
think
any-
definitely something's going to change for the fall, because I think what happens over the summer is going to be a big indication of what happens in the fall. I think we're in a very good spot, like we are with, again, with this new guidance that just came out, that we are back full-time, and that is everybody's goal, and we had that goal set out since last July and August when the guidance came out. So we're not making a lot of changes. But I think, you know, this 3 feet coming back was huge political pressure on the DOH and all of that, you know, to get these kids back into school. So I can't
So
tell you.
to the best of your knowledge, the rules for restaurants haven't changed, right? So if you
Correct.
sit down, you wear your mask.
Except they
when
can
you walk in.
open up and stay open later.
Right, and when you sit down, you can take your mask off.
Right.
But now they've changed it just for schools.
Right, and also part of that guidance is that the partitions are no longer, like, doesn't help you.
Aren't you glad you didn't invest in plexiglass?
So again, you know, that's what we don't understand. And, you know, you have 6 feet of distancing in schools, kids are just kind of hanging out, but then yet you go watch a football game and they're tackling each other, and you know, it just.
Is the message out there yet that, like, at the high school level, this cohort rule keeps these schools from being able to come back?
Correct.
Does the media know that, though? Like, you talk about political pressure. Has that been publicized yet? Is there potential that in a few weeks when...
Well, that's how the superintendents are responding, but I know this, you know, Students First movement, in which they're really the reason why some of these school districts are being sued. They don't care about that. They just want their kids back into school 5 days a week, and rightfully so, the superintendents and the district's responses are, we can't cohort, and we can't maintain 6 feet, so we have to remain in this hybrid. And that's the push and the pull with all of this. And when you watch the news, that's why these districts were ready to come back? Oh, 3 feet, we can come back. Oh, but when the guidance came out, they said, oh, but wait a second, we can't cohort. So they're right back to square one with their issues.
Any other questions for John? Tim? They could go. Thanks, John.
Yep.
On new business, be resolved that items 7.2 through 7.9 be approved via consent agenda. You get a motion?
Are you gonna?
We moved around, so.
Okay.
So 7.10 and 7.11 are now the GWAP election and GWAP administrative budget.
Okay.
So, we're excluding those from the consent agenda because we've got a board member that's going to abstain on that vote. So we get a motion for the 7.2 through 7.9.
Motion.
A second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 7.10, be resolved that nominees of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services be elected as follows. Matthew Crane, Edward Levenstein, and David Woodruff. We get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And one abstention. Passes. 7.11. Be resolved that the Board of Oakfield-Alabama Central School District by resolution casts its vote on the proposed administrative budget for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services for 2021-2022, the amount of $2,895,266.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention on that, so passes. I think we're on to communications. Anything we need to know about? Tara, just what we've got on us?
No,
Okay. Discussion roundtable. Submitted. Committee reports, anything there? Nothing that I'm a part of? Anything anybody else is a part of?
No.
Yours is coming up?
Is it?
I think you'll work with the guidance counselors and maybe Mr. Peterson.
Because I was at the Paxton board meeting the other night, in the library meeting, and they said, well, who still does the determination of the scholarship? So that board didn't know who still does it. And I said, I don't know either, so I'll be contacted, I would imagine,
Yeah.
by Matt, maybe?
Yeah,
Yep.
the guidance counselors.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I usually sign,
May?
I sign the diplomas right after that, so that would be
Mhm.
May.
Yeah,
May,
that'll get in touch
okay.
with it.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Personnel. Be resolved, the personnel items 10.2 through 10.5 be approved via consent agenda. Get a motion.
I do want to just apologize to the board for the 10.3, the extracurriculars. On a normal given school year, when we talk about, spring stipends for the coaches and things, that would be well ahead of time. Not knowing what to plan for, what to prepare for, people's schedules, the school seasons and the sports seasons overlapping. There were some last minute people taking up the positions that were vacant. So again, I apologize for giving information to you at the last minute, but it just, unfortunately, it is what it is at this time. So I do appreciate the board's patience with that flexibility.
We get a motion for that approval?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? The Alba Tracker system, is that something new for us?
Yeah, so the track is an umbrella, but Elba does help assist us. They're supposed to actually have a program assistant, and they don't have anybody. So we're just naming Courtney Kelly an elbow track assistant, and she'll actually be paid by and through ELBA because she's coaching and she's coaching our kids. The board needs to approve it. Yep.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. And a few retirements. Resolved that we accept the letter of retirement from Carmen Butters, bus driver, effective June 30th, 2021. With a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? See, 14 years, another hole for
15 years?
15
Yes,
years.
yes, Carlene, thank you very much for all your dedication to our district. Yes, 15 years.
Maybe we could amend the motion to read with appreciation and deep regret, because bus drivers are hard to find.
right.
That's a joke.
Holes keep coming.
Sincerely meant.
All in favor of accepting that?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be resolved to accept the letter of retirement from Scott Loring, senior custodial worker, effective June 29, 2021. Give me a motion.
Second.
Is the motion ready? Do we have a motion?
Yep.
Motion and a second.
Yep.
So, any discussion?
He's been with us for 31 years. He's done terrific work for the district, pours his heart into what he does and still does today. They were busy putting the plows back on the trucks. So, yeah, Scott, we're going to miss you. Thank you.
I have to give him commendation. When I worked in the elementary school, he was unfailingly kind when he had to clean up kindergarten messes. And I thought he did that unshirkingly and graciously, and I was very impressed because I wasn't used to dealing with kids who leak everywhere. And he obviously was, and he did it with great grace. I was impressed.
All of those in favor of accepting the letter of retirement?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. One more retirement. Be resolved to accept the letter of retirement from Al Davis, bus driver, effective April 15, 2021.
Again, with appreciation and regret. So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
14 years.
14.
Yep.
All those in favor of accepting that letter?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Executive session, be resolved by the Board of Education. Enter executive session to this class. Are they new, this class?
They are, but they're not hooked up yet. It's not 9:19.
So 9:19, 9:16, I think 7:14. All right, so we'll go in at 7:14 for the purpose of discussing employment, in particular employee and contract negotiations. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?